Hello and welcome to Tonalist Painting with M. Francis McCarthy. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and the painting I am bringing you today is called Twilight Journey. It's 8 by 8 inches, and I did this all the way back in 2014. I thought, actually, this is Friday night. It's about 8 o'clock in New Zealand here. I may try and get this up tonight, or I may just pop it up tomorrow, in addition to day 26 of 25 days of tonalism. And either way, it's my idea is that it's a bonus deal. That's why I grabbed this painting from 2014, and surprisingly, looking through that 2014 folder, I did a few good paintings back then, and this is one of them. In fact, I'm thinking I might do this again in a larger size. I quite like it, and I believe I sold it. So anyway, I like this painting. Now you can see I'm painting here on a smooth board. It is probably I think it's the same Calvary laminate on MDF that I use now. However, I've prepared the board with sanding sealer, and it had almost a furniture finish. It was like painting on like a cabinet door or something. Really, it's so very smooth and very a nice surface to paint on. I actually enjoyed painting on that smooth surface. I switched to a textured ground, and a little darker too, probably around 2015, after doing the 100 Days of Tonalism project. I thought that having a bit of texture there was a big advantage in a lot of ways. Although the thing I liked about the smooth board is that all the texture is created by the painting itself, which is also cool. So, not saying I wouldn't go back to that sometime. I very well may do that. We never know. I always reserve the right to look back and go back to previous working methods. I'm seldom married to anything forever, but I do like to work with a particular method that works until I've really gotten absolutely everything out of it possible. This is just my personality, and this is how I've been with relationships and jobs as well. I tend to stick with things until I've seen every possible eventuality manifest, and then I'll make a change at that point in time. So like I said, it's Friday, it's an evening. Like I say, I had a little extra time here, so I thought I might, I'm trying to, because I am providing a bit less actual content in the form, especially in the form of essays in the blog post, but it is an audio-visual world now, so I think there's a lot of value to the videos and actually seeing the paintings come together. And one of the things I really like is, I get to see me doing a painting back in 2014, which is now 3 years ago or so. This is actually probably 2.5 years ago. And I've really progressed and changed a lot as a painter since that time. A lot of the things I do are the same. I think I basically hold the brush the same, but I have definitely matured as a painter, and one of the main ways that I've matured is just in knowing and learning what doesn't work. And I knew that the only way to accomplish that would be to do a lot of paintings, and in fact 2014 was the year I think I decided I was only going to do 8 by 8s and 8 by 10s, and I probably did, 100 something 8 by 8s and 8 by 10s that year, and about 20-25 of them were quite good, and then another big middle chunk, some of which some I cut down later, cropped, or did some repainting, and either way, I progressed, and the only way that you can progress is by doing a lot of paintings. These days, I don't often allow myself to paint as small as 8x8 unless it's a 5x5 or 5x7 study. Now, studies are studies, and they are, while they are valid little paintings, their purpose is to serve as a preparation for a larger painting. Or in my working method these days, like I'm in the studio, I'm doing a second pass on about, I think it's 18 5x5s and 5x7 studies. There's no way I'm going to turn all 18 into larger paintings. That's not going to happen. I'm thinking I might get 10 out of there, maybe 12. It's probably more like 10. I evaluate, and I'll definitely pick the top 5 and do that as a pass, and then I may come in and do. That's what I did over the previous several months, and I was happy with that. That worked well. And then of course, actually that's even before this time period right now, because I didn't do any studies for the last 2 months because I was just painting over the top of failed old paintings, and didn't do any studies for that at all. But in fact, that was working so well, I played with the idea of not doing studies, but I like to work with an image several times, I think, and it's a big part of it is getting away from the actual photo and getting into the painting. The way I accomplish that is I do the study, and then I actually do my larger painting without even referencing the study until the final stages. And then I find it's very helpful in those final stages because by then I've completely abandoned the photo and or the reference image that I've created, and I still like to have something to look at, so I think studies are valuable for that. Also, if you look at the fact that I do these underpaintings, I do a drawing, I have basically created the image for twice as just a value or drawing, and then 2 times as actual paintings. So by the time I'm getting to finishing the larger version, I've really synthesized it, and this is part of my synthetic process. I'm not into painting nature in a natural way. I know that sounds terrible. I'm into painting nature in a synthetic way. I'm into painting nature as through the filter of my perception and my experience and my consciousness, and this is the thing that I can share with the world that a camera cannot. Now, that's not to say that a good photographer could through all sorts of different methods of photography and post-production and manage to create a scene that's an emotive reflection of his state of consciousness. I think it's a very, very difficult way to try and create art, and you always run the risk, because you're working with a photo, of it being sort of generic, even your best attempts. I mean, there was an Ansel Adams, but there's a lot of people now that can look like Ansel Adams very easily. Well, maybe not, but Ansel Adams is great. I'm not dissing Ansel Adams, but I guess the point I'm making is that when you're working with an image that's captured and you're manipulating it, there's so many things in that image that might need to be illuminated or adjusted or whatever, that painting is, to me, preferable way to communicate and express myself. And I don't consider what I do to be making copies of photos, although I use photos as part of my process. And process is a big part of what I'm doing. I have ways I approach things and go over things, and that's always changing and modifying. And but some things stay very consistent and similar. I know, for example, I probably took the reference image that I used for this back in 2014. I've done a painting this last year that was a horizontal, sort of based on the same place. I wouldn't call it the same scene because I think I was zoomed in, but it had that road and it had the group of trees on the right and the same trees on the left, but very different. It came out quite different, and this, I think, the standout feature of this particular painting is the sky. And back in 2014, I was really into skies with both orange and blue. I was really into this sort of chromatic color combination, and I'm really happy with the way that this painting turned out. And I know I sold it this last year. I had it up in Helena Bay Gallery up here in Northland, New Zealand, and it's gone. It's in someone's home, but I really like it. I think it's good. And like I said, looking through that folder, there's a lot I kind of go, ooh, you know. But I always tried, you know. I'm always trying, and there's no substitute for experience. So, like I said, getting back to the studio this week, I've been doing studies. I'm doing a second pass, a bit of dry brushing. In some cases, maybe getting a little carried away with it. Who knows? It's nice, especially in skies. I find that a bit of dry brushing over the textured surface gives me quite of an airy feel, and it graduates and creates areas that there might be overly much contrast. I can soften with a color, oftentimes a color that's a little bit complementary. And you know, I don't spend a heck of a lot of time on the second pass for the 5x7s, maybe about 15 minutes or so. We're getting close to the end here. I have put a link in the YouTube for Saatchi art. I have a bunch of paintings that are sitting around that I thought, you know, I'm not going to be putting these in a gallery or this museum show I have coming up. So I thought it might be good to maybe make them available online. Some of them are quite nice. And I'm trying to put a few up every week, so if you're interested, you can click on that link. Also, if you like the channel, you know, subscribe. It's easy. Just click that YouTube button there and you're subscribed. And you can also follow my work through my website, landscapepainter.co.nz. You can follow the blog through there, or there's a link to the blog, which will have a larger version of this image, so you can check that out. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. We'll see you tomorrow, or even later today. Meanwhile, take good care and stay out of trouble.